5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to Epoch Lacrosse's continuing preseason coverage. I'm here with ILWomen editor Hallie Quillinan to talk a little bit about women's lacrosse for the 2016 season. Hallie, when we're talking about the landscape for women's lacrosse this year, it has to start with the Maryland Terrapins, the back-to-back champs, always perennial contenders. What do you see from them, and who are some of the other teams that maybe could knock them off the throne this year?
Absolutely. This Maryland team has lost 2 regular season games in the last 2 years. Taylor Cummings returns, a 2-time Wharton winner. She has the ability to become the award's first 3-time winner this year, men's or women's. It's her year this year. She's a senior. She's looking to lead this team. They have 5 preseason All-Americans. And until a team comes and knocks them off their throne, they were number 1 in our book heading in. Those 2 teams, I think, early on that have a shot, number 2, North Carolina, and number 3, Syracuse. North Carolina has had a bit more success against the Terps than Syracuse, but when North Carolina plays Syracuse, it's usually the orange coming out on top. You have Kaylee Waters anchoring the Tar Heel team, and Kayla Trainer looking to go big in her final year in Syracuse. All
3 teams you mentioned have players in the Face-Off Yearbook Player of the Year watch. In addition to Cummings, in addition to Waters, in addition to Trainer, who are some of those people who are on your short list for the Tour Time Trophy this year?
Those 3 that you mentioned are definitely on my short list. I think Kaylee Waters is the top goalie in the country. She was a first-team All-American last year. I think that she needs to be in the Wharton discussion just because if there's going to be a goalie that can win this award, it's going to be her. I think Taylor Cummings and Kayla are the 2 front runners. They're 2-time finalists. Taylor, a 2-time winner. Beyond that, my 2 additional finalists, Selena Lasota at Northwestern. She's a sophomore. She was the ILWomen Rookie of the Year last year, and she led Canada to their first ever international win on the women's side in the U19 World Championship this summer. Additionally, it's going to come down to defenders Alice Mercer from Maryland or Barbara Sullivan from Notre Dame. Sullivan was a finalist last year. Dowdy was a finalist the year before. A Maryland defender always seems to make their way into the IWLCA Defender of the Year discussion. Alice Mercer plays Team USA defense. She was really one of the top players this past weekend, in my opinion. And if there's going to be a defender in the mix, it's going to be Mercer or Sullivan.
Hallie, you mentioned 2 clear frontrunners, Taylor Cummings and Kayla Trainer. Taylor versus Kayla, it's going to be a big storyline this year. How can you compare and contrast their games and kind of what makes them both elite players, and how are they different as players?
I feel like it's a story I've written 1,000 times, probably because we have written it so many times and covered it in our magazine. These are just 2 incredibly talented players in their own right. It's almost unfair that they're in the same class, because if Taylor Cummings hadn't captured those 2 Wharton trophies, Kayla Trainer would. They're just so dynamic. Taylor Cummings is as good offensively as she is defensively. Her bread and butter is her success on the draw. And she's just a player that at the end of the game, she makes those plays to win a game. She's so dependable top to bottom, and the Wharton committee has really rewarded her as such. She is the best all-around player in the game. But Kayla Trainer does things I have never seen before offensively. She dazzles crowds, her stick work is unparalleled, and she just has jaw-dropping goal after jaw-dropping goal. She is this team's leader offensively, and they will go as far as she can take her. I think Taylor Cummings and Kayla Trainer both have so much respect for one another. They play on Team USA together. They're great friends, but it's definitely a battle when they get on the field. And I think when you see Syracuse-Maryland games, the 2 of them really step it up a notch, and it's going to be great to see their last season unfold this spring.
So a lot of talk about Maryland, a lot of talk about UNC, but it's not just the traditional powers that really have a shot at this. There's a few dark horse candidates out there that really could make some noise come May, right?
Absolutely. Starting with ILWomen's number 6 preseason team, the Penn State Nittany Lions. They did a great job this fall, and they really didn't lose much. They lose Maggie McCormick, they lose Tatum Coffey, they bring in Madison Carter, and Madison Sear is back as a senior. Abby Smucker is a first-team All-American preseason heading into 2016. Emmy Smith was an All-American a year ago in net. This team has so much talent top to bottom. All 7 players on this offense can score at any given time. It's going to be Penn State's best year. I think in the last few years we've seen them. And they won the Big Ten championship a season ago, so that's saying something. Another team we have to look out for is Stony Brook. Stony Brook has had the America East page for the last few seasons. Albany is a team that's been there kind of knocking on the door, but Stony Brook has closed that door season after season. And this year they return everyone that they had last year. They're going to be even better, and I think that Stony Brook is going to make a late season run.
We know the ACC is going to be a terror. We know how that conference schedule is just, such a tough road for any team that's in it, no matter how good you are. But, what's your conference that you really are excited to look at this year and see how it shakes out?
I'm certainly excited for the ACC. I'm excited for the Big Ten. But my most intriguing conference heading into 2016 is the Ivy League. We expanded our top 25 rankings in the Face-Off yearbook. Cornell made its way in at 23. Penn was at 14. Princeton at 13. Penn is the Ivy League perennial power. Princeton won last year, but it's really Penn's season after season ability to rebuild and just reload with that ability. And this year, I think that Coach Corbett has Penn firing on all cylinders. Princeton returns a lot of talent. They bring in talented newcomer Elizabeth George. And then you throw Harvard in there. You throw Dartmouth in there. Yale has a whole new coaching staff. I'm excited to see what they can do this year. So I think the Ivy League, they play each other so tight. Doesn't even matter where any of these teams are ranked. I feel like it's always a 1 or 2 goal game. This league is really going to be interesting as we watch the season unfold. You mentioned the expanded rankings in the Face-Off yearbook. Something else that's expanded is our recruiting coverage of the women's game. The rankings were expanded, in a number of class years this year. You have your finger on the pulse of who are the next rising stars in this game. Who are some of these freshmen that we can look for this year to make an instant impact? Absolutely. I think starting with number 1, Maryland, you're going to see a lot of new faces. They graduated a lot of seniors a season ago. Defensively, you might see some newcomers, but offensively, I think a player you need to keep your eye on is Caroline Steele, especially with the departure of Brooke Griffin. Caroline Steele plays a very similar game to Brooke Griffin, and I think she just has the ability to play with a lot of poise. She was the MVP of the Under Armour game this season, and she looked like a player ready to get into the college game. I think another player you have to keep your eye on is Lindsay Ronbeck from Florida. She was our number 2 recruit. Sydney Pareca was our number 1 recruit, also at Florida. I think it's a little bit easier for an attacker to make an immediate impact rather than a midfielder. Pareca is going to be learning both sides of the game this year, and Ronbeck is such a talented scorer. Florida needs goals this year. Shannon Gilroy graduated, so it's going to be Ronbeck's year leading Florida offensively. And then heading up to Notre Dame, Nikki Ortega. She played with the US U19 team over the summer. A teammate of Ronbeck's on that lineup. And Ortega is going to be playing with Courtney Fortunato in South Bend. And the two of them have established a lot of chemistry early on. And then lastly, rounding out this, Nicole Levy. We saw what the Syracuse freshman can do against Team USA. She's on a line with Kayla Traynor, Hallie Majorana, both first-team All-Americans a season ago. Throw in Riley Donahue, sophomore, whose brother Dylan is an All-American on the men's program. And Levy rounds out this attack. In my opinion, that's the top attacking unit in the country. And Levy was playing the best out of all of them this past season. That's a lot of interesting storylines, a lot to digest, Hallie. What are your final thoughts as we head into this 2016 season? I think I'm just excited. I think lacrosse fans are really excited to see some of the new rules implicated, but also to see, will Maryland three-peat? Will they take those steps to becoming yet another dynasty in Terrapin history? Or will a new team win? Will Syracuse win their first ever national championship? Will North Carolina capture their second? Or will another team that we're not even talking about today come in and win it all? Thanks everyone for watching. Make sure you're following Hallie, the editor of ILWomen, on Twitter at hrquillinan. And make sure you're following Matt on Twitter at Matt Kinnear. And also make sure you're following ILWomen throughout this season at ILWomen on Twitter and Instagram. We do our best to get some great in-game action shots and highlights up on that Instagram. And then also be sure to check back the Epoch scoreboard on ILWomen.com for all up-to-date scores for the weekend games and stats accordingly. Thanks a lot.